What's up guys? Welcome to a bit of a special episode of GetPsyched this week. This week we're up north, just outside Avonmore, and I thought this would be a pretty good opportunity for us to talk a little bit about mental health and actually being outside and in nature, because this is one of my favourite places in the world, and I always feel like my mental health improves whenever I get here. So, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the importance of being in nature for mental health and some of the tips that you can take away to help improve your mental health by just being in nature. So there was actually a recent study done around mental health and actually being in nature. I read a study the other day that said if you're in nature for 2 hours over the course of a week, then that's good enough to actually improve elements of your mental health. So it's not a case that you actually have to be going out and walking in the woods every single day like I'm doing here, obviously. You don't have to do that every single day. If you can spread out some time in nature, some time in the wilderness over the course of a week, and I get how difficult that is with people's 9 to 5, but that can be a really beneficial thing for people's mental health. All you need really is 2 hours over the course of a week. So you might be asking yourself, what can you do to actually improve your experience of nature, to increase your experience of nature and ultimately receive some kind of benefits to your mental health? Well, there are a number of different things that you can do. The first thing you could do is perhaps stop watching Netflix so much and actually get out into the wilderness, get out into the woods, get away from city life to some degree and go for walks and things like that. That's self-explanatory, everybody can understand that. But there's also a number of different other things that you can do. One of the key things that I think is really beneficial when we're thinking about being in nature and the positive implications for mental health is doing things that you normally would do inside, outside. So, for example, that could be reading. Maybe reading, I know for me, for example, reading, I normally just do that in my living room. One of the things I could do is I could go to the park and read. Things like cooking as well, barbecuing, being in a garden, these kind of things are really important. And although they might sound small and mundane, they're actually expressing and exposing you to elements of nature, which is really positive. You can also do small things such as like gardening. Now, gardening can be a really good experience, a really good motivator to get you into nature and experience some benefits to your mental health. So things like gardening in your back garden, even if you've got a flat or an apartment, you can do some little kind of, those little bits of gardening you can do outside your window. Those are the kind of things that actually help experience a little bit more nature in your life.
Have you been by Reggie?
Things like, we're trying to record, but we're also getting bitten by midges as we're doing this. That's one of the downsides and perhaps not so good for your mental health. One of the other things that you can do is actually bring the nature inside. So bringing houseplants, this is something that I speak to organizations a lot about when we're talking about mental health, is a lot of organizations and buildings just have kind of clinical settings. The more plant life, the more nature that you can bring into a work setting, into your own life, into your own home, that's going to increase an experience of nature to some degree. That might sound small and nothing compared to actually going out and walking at a weekend, but if you can increase your exposure to plant life, to the things that are in nature inside, then that's going to be a good thing. There's so many benefits to actually being in nature and the kind of positive ramifications of mental health. And I have to say, in a personal experience today, we've had an awesome day going out for walks, spending time in the garden here. I took my own advice and did the cooking outside. We got a disposable barbecue and just made some burgers and some chicken. And just being in nature has had such a positive implication for our mental health today. I feel really good. Feels like we've actually achieved something today. I feel so relaxed because I've actually not watched any television, not really been on my phone that much today. So there's not so much about psychological research behind this, just from personal experience, and spending a full day in nature has had massive, massive implications for me today. However, there is also psychological research that backs all of this up. The psychological research that says spending time in nature has the positive implication to benefit mental health in areas such as anger, decreasing anger, increasing senses of well-being, increases in senses of peacefulness. It's also something that actually therapists recommend for people that are suffering from anxiety and depression. Simply spending more time in nature, more time outside, can have huge implications for the benefits for depression and anxiety, for example. There's a steam engine, so we're going to have to kind of wait for that to pass. This is one of the negative things about being out in nature and not recording in the corner of your living room. But we can put up with it. This is something actually I see with clients a lot, and what happens is with clients who have depression or anxiety is that they take on avoidant patterns or avoidant behaviours, and what that requires them to do often is revert into themselves or detach themselves away. So what can happen sometimes is particularly people who are anxious, they can start to kind of cut themselves off from wider society or even from being outside as much. And that's one of the things that they feel is going to help them with their anxiety, but it's actually the exact opposite. Being able to expose yourself to nature, being out into sociable environments, being out in the open fields, being out in some kind of wilderness environment, rather than just reserving yourself into your house, is one of the most beneficial things that people can do for depression and anxiety. So don't just take my word for it today and the day that we've had today. You also need to take on board the psychological research and actually what therapy suggests as well, which requires people who maybe are suffering from depression or anxiety to actually get out into nature. So guys, today has been a pretty cool episode of GetPsyched. I've got to be honest with you, this has probably been my favourite day of filming because I haven't just been stuck in my house, I haven't just been in that corner with the bookshelf behind me. Today, actually getting out into nature, into the wilderness has been an amazing way to enjoy it and actually enjoy filming as well. So it's been a really, really cool day. Guys, if you've enjoyed today's episode where we've been looking at the connection between mental health and nature, then make sure to hit the like button. You can share the video as well. And if you've been enjoying GetPsyched as a whole, you can subscribe to us and you'll get weekly reminders if you hit that little bell next to the subscribe button of every time that we upload every Monday. Thanks again, guys, for coming along and watching today's episode of GetPsyched, and hopefully we'll catch you next week. I'm doing like a kind of cool segue bit here where I'm like watching out into nature. Nice? Yeah.